Yes, people, we are back yet again. Drive to Survive Season 6, Episode 4. It's time to review it, okay? Williams versus Haas. Gunther Steiner versus James Vowles. Gunther Steiner, ladies and gentlemen. The man, the myth, the legend. Look at him, huh? Splendor, okay? A man who is box office when it comes to the Netflix series, and it's time to talk about it. We kick things off. In case you didn't know, people, he has got a book, okay? He's got a book about his time in Formula One. I need to make a purchase. And guess what? Once I get the purchase, once I read it, we're going to review it. Okay. Very, very simple. But yes, we are talking about Netflix Drive to Survive. A great season, a great episode as well. It's been phenomenal so far, up to episode 4 right now. And it's been a breathtaking episode, a breathtaking series. I'm a fan. Okay, people. I know people get upset about, how inaccurate it is, the Netflix Drive to Survive. It's not quite accurate as the Formula One circuit and the season and everything else like that. But listen, I don't care. Okay, Netflix have put out a documentary. They put out a series. It's about F1, and I'm here to talk about it. Why? I'm an F1 fan. Okay, I'm a Formula One fan, and give me all the content you've got. Okay, and we can talk about that content, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we talk about Gunther Steiner's book. We learn about him doing a book and everything else like that. Things of that nature. And, fair enough, it is what it is. Like, it's, not really a great detail in terms of, like, what the book is about. We don't even really actually get into that. All we see is the signings, people getting, pictures with him. He's doing book press releases. And it kind of makes you think, now that I look back at it, it makes you think, is this man equipped? Is he ready for the Formula One world in terms of, like, can you be like a Hollywood rock star, an all-time bestseller, probably a New York Times bestseller, right? And also be a team principal in Formula One. It's very difficult. If you can pull it off, fair play to you. But let's keep it clear. Gunther Steiner ain't won nothing in Formula One, okay? He's won the hearts of people, but that's about it, okay? He's not been like the best thing since sliced bread. Anyway, Haas, the history of Haas. Haas is one of the funniest teams in Formula One. I call them a joke, but it's harsh. But at the same time, you understand why I would, because the things they get up to in a Formula One season is phenomenal. Some of the shenanigans they've been up to, I keep thinking about the time when they debuted in Formula One, okay? They even turned up late for their debut, because they were meant to debut, I think, was it 2015, ended up being 16, or it was 14, ended up being 15. Whatever the point is, they turned up late, okay? We had the Rich Energy saga. That was a saga all on of itself. Hey, listen, Formula One documented it well. Netflix Drive to Survive documented it well. That Rich Energy saga was unreal. These guys were doing pit stops where the tires wouldn't even fit on the car. It goes on and on. Nikita Mazepin, I mean, do I need to say more? It goes on, okay? At the end of last season, it was a disaster, and Gunther Steiner was just happy to be over and done with the season. So he had the 2 rookie drivers. He said, you know what, bun this. I'm done. In 2022, he said, I'm done. We're not going to have Mick Schumacher anymore, the son of Michael Schumacher. It was sad to see him go, but he had to go, okay, ladies and gentlemen. And then Nikita Mazepin, he had to go. Excuse you, he had to go. Simple as that. And then we get into a new era. We've got the K-Mag, and we've got Nico Hülkenberg. They've gone with the experience. They've gone with people where, Magnussen was there from previous years, but Hülkenberg comes with a wealth of experience, a man who secures points like none other. And what Haas need is points at this stage, because they were, allergic to prosperity, treading at the back, sitting at left back. They were nowhere to be found, okay? And it was about time that they actually got some experience, somebody who they can rely on. Nico Hülkenberg hasn't been in a Formula One seat for about 3 years, but every time he stepped in for people, he stepped in there, especially for the Racing Point, okay? He stepped in there and he showed his worth. He showed what he was capable of, okay? So big up to Hülkenberg, Nico Hülkenberg, right? And it made sense for Haas to bring these kind of people in. They tried to create this narrative, Netflix, okay? This idea that there's a bit of beef between K-Mag and Nico Hülkenberg. The truth of the matter is they had one incident, okay? It happened one time. This is the way Magnussen portrayed it, right? We had one incident one time. It's squashed. It's done. Like, why are we even talking about it? Okay. Meanwhile, everybody was like, hey, this is going to be a bit of beef. You know what I mean? And it's another episode that I think that they kind of previewed to at the end of this episode. They previewed to the fact that there's a Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in due course. But the K-Mag and the Hülkenberg beef, there was no beef. It was squashed very, very quickly. Okay. Claire Williams gets involved in the scene. because she used to be the team principal of Williams. Now, Williams gets introduced into the scenario because Williams were one of these teams that were lagging at the back, just like Haas were. These are a team that have been lagging at the back, and she obviously speaks from her experience. If there's one thing you don't want to be in Formula One is being at the back. Finishing last is dead. Haas have been finishing last for like the last couple of years, but the last team to finish finish last before Haas was Williams. So she understood that very well. She knew exactly what she was talking about when it came to the scenario. Haas, however, it was crazy because Williams have changed their direction, okay? And then they've brought in James Vowles, who's former, I can't remember what his job title was at Mercedes, but it was so high to the point where the next job for him really was to take over Toto Wolff's place, okay? So Toto Wolff was like, look, I got to let this guy go because the next job he can do is in my position. Now, James Vowles, can I just say this, guys? James Vowles, yeah? Phenomenal, man. I love the man. I think he's incredible. I love the fact that he's in that Williams team. Brilliant. And you know what, Netflix? You drank him in. You took him in. You asked him the questions. You let the man speak. And we saw a character behind him that we were sort of become very fond of. Now, Mercedes fans would have known what kind of man James Vowles is. But for me as a person, I was sitting there, trying to get to know who this James Vowles guy is. And as he's talking throughout the season, I'm like, you know what? I like you. I actually like you, because during the season itself, in terms of in real life, in real time, didn't really get to know James Vowles a lot, and hopefully I'll get to know him a bit more this season in terms of like the content that Formula One will show throughout the course of the season. I didn't really get to feel him in this episode. However, I got a glimpse, they gave me a taste, they gave me a slice of James Vowles. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, scenes of glorious emotion. The idea though that this is going to be the Haas versus Williams story, I was hooked in. They bring me in. Netflix know how to bring me in. They pull me with the hook. I had my seat ready. I was strapped in. I said, let's go. Off we go. Let's see what they have to provide for us. Now, when Vowles introduces himself, he talks about how he's 44 years of age. And it struck me because everybody else, says, I'm so-and-so team principal of Red Bull. I'm so-and-so F1 driver for so-and-so. Like they kind of just say their name and what they do, and that's that. Vowles mentions the age, and I thought, clearly this is a direction of Netflix. Let's see why they've asked him to speak this way. And it turns out he's the youngest team principal on the grid, okay? That is interesting. And it kind of brings to perspective what's been going on at Williams. Williams have decided, look, we're going to cut the slate clean. And on cutting the slate clean, I must say, I hope they do bring back Claire Williams in some way, shape, or form. If she's willing to, not necessarily be team principal, but I think there is something that she can add to the table here at Williams. Williams, I think, are on the trajectory. They're on the up. And I think there's a place for Claire Williams, especially with the name like Williams. Come on, like this is family tree. You've got to get her involved. If Netflix can get her involved, Williams, do the right thing. Get her involved. Get her in the piece, okay? We get a little segment about James Vowles. He's talking about caffeine. He mentions the fact that he doesn't take caffeine during the week. He takes caffeine on Sunday. Obviously, Sunday is race day. And he says that, the reason I take caffeine on the Sunday is simply because it's got the most effect. I was sitting there like, this guy's spitting the bars. This guy's preaching. I was taking it in. I was like, even in my mind, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should hold on the caffeine till like a match day, okay? Those of you that don't know, I work at a football club. I work on match days. And if I need caffeine to work for me, I think it will be that day, if anything else, right? But yeah, it's that kind of thing where I don't know. I just kind of learned a lot. He said very little, but I learned a lot in that moment, and it kind of just expanded his character. Netflix do this very, very well. I have to credit them on this. They know how to give us a little glimpse, because at the end of the day, when you're at that, these high positions and these famous and they're in the sports industry and everything like that, you don't ever get close to these kind of people. You don't get close to drivers. You don't get close to personnel, staff, team principals. You don't get close to them at all. So the fact that we even get a little juice, a little glimpse, I'm like, you know what? I am all about this. I am all for it. I would love to have a piece of this action, okay? So keep giving it to me, Netflix. I'm loving every single moment of it. Will Buxton, once again, he gets into this episode, okay? Of course he does, because he's the master at this episode, or he's the master of Netflix Drive to Survive. By the way, he's the unsung hero of Netflix Drive to Survive. Gunther Steiner got his props early doors, and fair play, he must do, right? Don't get me wrong. He should get his props. But Will Buxton, I think like if there is not a Will Buxton, you lose. You don't even realize it because when he's doing it, he's doing his thing, and it's kind of it can go unnoticed depending on how you analyze. But if you take Will Buxton out of a Drive to Survive, right, you kind of lose that finishing edge, that finished touch, that touch that makes you feel like I need to hold position on this argument here. I need to grab hold of this episode. Okay, I know I'm feeling very passionate today. I don't know what it is. But you know, it just as I was watching this, I thought, do you know what, man? I got to give props where it's due. I tip the hat off to these people who have to sit here and you know document this every single day. And you know, they've been doing it for a whole season. And then you can imagine the amount of footage these people have at Netflix and so on and so forth at Formula One. The people that are responsible for this, right? And they've got to chop it down to 10 episodes. Because I think 10 episodes is a lot in Netflix. And I think 10 episodes for something that's like 45 minutes to an hour per episode, I think is quite a lot. So the fact that we, you know, but then when I deep it and I actually think about actually, these guys have had to make 10 episodes, 45 minutes to an hour each, right? Of a season that started like, you know, we're going winter testing all the way to like December. Fair play to you guys. Fair play. Hats off. But anyway, Buxton talks of the fact, let me get to the point, right? Buxton talks of the fact that James Vowles has learned from the Toto Wolff school. Now, if you know anything about Toto Wolff, serial winner in Formula One, 7-time team principal champion, okay, with Mercedes. This guy has won credentials. Oh, in fact, 6 times, I think. Sorry, 6-time champion, right? No, actually 7. Nico Rosberg, of course, yes. 7-time champion as a team principal. And he obviously knows how to win. James Vowles comes from that school in a sense of he was there when Mercedes were winning those championships. He was part of the staff. He knew exactly what took place. He knew Toto Wolff inside and out. Okay, so he knows exactly what it will take. And even as he's gone to Williams and becomes a team principal there, Toto Wolff is still giving him advice. I mean, not serious advice. He's joking. Says, you know, lift up the shirt a little bit here, do a bit of this, that, and the other. But you can tell that the relationship between, of course, Mercedes and Williams has always been there, as Mercedes provide engines for Williams racing, by the way. But the fact that James Vowles has learned from Toto Wolff, it kind of reminds you that, listen, James Vowles is no mug. He might be a rookie in this position, but he's no mug in Formula One, okay? So you've got the new school here of James Vowles at Williams, but then you've got the old school of Gunther Steiner. And it makes you perceive already like, hang on a minute, you know, we've loved Gunther Steiner for a very long time. But when do we start to question whether his principles are right, whether the way he manages the team is correct? When do we start to question it? And this episode is very interesting because you kind of get this vibe of it's old school versus new school. There's so many things involved here. The only thing I will say, however, the last chapter is what it's called, this title, and I don't get it. But maybe as we talk, it might come to us. You know, it might come to me and it might make sense as to why they called this episode The Last Chapter. Because honestly, I have not a Scooby. Why is it called The Last Chapter? I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But then they go through like the early part of the season. Haas have the upper hand. The experienced driver, the Nico Hülkenbergs, the Kevin Magnusons of this world is working. By the way, at Williams, they've got a rookie in Logan Sargent, an American driver. And they got Alex Albon, a young driver who's got experience in Formula One, but he's also been, you know, he's kind of been up and down the grid a little bit. You know, he's at the Toro Rosso, he was at Red Bull, lost his seat at Red Bull, didn't really feature in Formula One, and then, you know, they gave him a hand back at Williams, right? And, you know, it kind of has to take the upper hand in Saudi. And it kind of makes you question, okay, James Vowles has got a big task on his hand. He's having to sort of let Albon know, like, look, where do you think the ambition of Williams is? Because I want to make you aware that I want this team to get back at the front. I believe it can be back at the front again. And a person like Alex Albon, young driver, but the time is ticking. He needs to be in that seat where he's number one, where he's very basically like, you know, I'm fighting for the front end. Okay, I need to be fighting at the front where I can at least win races. You know, get on the podiums and maybe win a championship one day. And Vowles tries to sell him in that direction of, look, this is Williams, and Williams should be at the front, okay? And he kind of sniggered and giggled at it a little bit. And Vowles was like, listen, I know that you're giggling, you're laughing about it now, right? But this is the ambition of this team. And I need you here with me to be in this team. And I just love the fact that James Vowles can sell bread to a baker. He's this kind of, he's got some warmth about him that I really do admire. And you know, it was portrayed very well in the documentary. But yeah, Haas take the upper hand early doors, you know, Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and stuff like that. They take the reins at the beginning over Williams, especially. They're getting the points in. Williams are not having any points, are not having any luck. And obviously there's pressure under James Vowles, right? Meanwhile, Gunther Steiner's living the rock star life, you know, he's there signing books. He's got another book signing for this book. And you sort of think, okay, this is very, very interesting, you know. But then then there's the pressure, of course, goes on James Vowles. You see a bit of vulnerability with Alex Albon. But I like James Vowles, though. He takes it in well. I've already, I've gone on and exhausted about it. The turning point comes in Canada, where Williams score points because there's upgrades that are in place, right? There's pressure on Williams. James Vowles kind of reassures Alex Albon that, listen, this is the team that I want it to be. They bring on the upgrades. Guess what? The upgrades work, okay? The upgrades do phenomenally well. Williams scored points in Canada. Haas do not score any points in Canada. So now the table starts to turn. And as this moment is happening, I'm looking at Alex Albon, I'm looking at his growth, and I'm very happy for Alex Albon. If you go back on some of my old videos, man, I couldn't stand Alex Albon, especially when he was in that Red Bull. He frustrated me because he was at a team that I thought was elite, and it was trying to challenge and fight with Mercedes and Ferrari, but he was just not delivering. And I had an issue with him not delivering in that Red Bull, right? But my goodness, have I got to eat my words, because the guy, since he's gone away, come back. Bear this in mind, he was a Red Bull test driver, I think the year before or the season of Verstappen's first and second win in Formula One, right? Now think about this. This guy was in the simulator in Red Bull, testing that car, learning that brand new car and everything else. He was the test driver, right? So he would have been feeding back that information. And you also see this in this episode. He's good at giving feedback to the engineers, telling him what he feels, what he doesn't like, what he likes, what he thinks the car is doing. The guy is clever. He's clever. He's very, very good when it comes to learning about the car and communicating to his team what is right and what is wrong with the car. So when I look at this Red Bull now, do you know what sometimes I look at? Alex Albon was the one testing this car before he even touched the track. Okay? So fair play to Alex Albon. He's very mature, very, very mature. And you know what? Alex Albon's growth is something I am so happy to see. I never thought it would happen, but the fact that it's happened, mate, hats off. Hats off to Alex Albon, honestly. But Haas, on the other hand, started well, and then it fell apart, and it fell apart badly. They're looking at Williams thinking, why? What upgrades are these, and how comes they're doing so well? What's going on? What's happening here? And you get to the Austrian Grand Prix, you get to Spielberg. Will Buxton says, it's not like bringing a knife to a gunfight. They brought a spoon. That's the decrepitness of this Haas team, and it just makes you feel like, wow, what's going on? And then at the same time, Steiner is saying, there's nothing left. There's no juice left. We're squeezing everything we can out of this car. And what that led me to in the back of my mind was the way Gunther feels about Gene Haas, that Gene doesn't put any money into this team that could really help that team lift a little bit. Whereas Gene, on the other hand, if you're from Gene's perspective, he's like, listen, why would I put money into something that I don't see any progress in? Why should I do this? So there's a battle going on there where both have a fair argument there. They've both got a fair point. So yeah, anyway, so there's a meeting afterwards that happens with Gunther Steiner and Gene Haas, and Gene's kind of like, Gunther's very much like, this was rubbish, it was terrible, it was crap, it was this, it was that, and the other. And Gene was like, yeah, but it's going to be the same again next year, isn't it? And you're sort of like, whoa, what's going on here? And obviously the chapter, the last chapter, title's going on in the background in my head. And yet, I'm thinking, okay, maybe something's going to happen at this moment in time. And nothing necessarily does happen. But as I'm watching this, and let's blame Netflix for this, okay? As I'm watching this, the way Netflix portrays it is that I saw it as, maybe Gunther Steiner is just too old for this, because he comes across a lot more old school than I actually kind of figured or took part in. And it's only because I saw the version that they gave James Vowles. James Vowles came on a very, very more modern kind of team principle. In a sense, he's a former engineer, right? He studied engineering. He has the maths degree and science and everything else, engineering degree, the full shebang. Okay. And the way he sort of takes in data from race to race, from weekend to weekend, he's somebody who looks at the data and starts analyzing from there. And a good team principal, I guess, is one that is able to look at data and say, hey, this is, I'm seeing this. So it means, we need to sort this out. Gunter, on the other hand, is like, listen, I'm no expert. There's a team meeting, right? There's a team meeting with Haas. And it's very awkward and very weird because the team meeting looks like it's on Zoom because, Haas as well, to caveat, they're like in 3 different places. They've got a base in North Carolina, they've got a base in Italy, and they've got a base in England, right? And so everybody, all the members of staff have to communicate basically online. And that's not good, right? Whereas, say, a team like Williams, they all, meet in one place. Where is Williams? I'm trying to remember. The place escapes me. It's obviously not Woking, that's McLaren. But the place escapes me now. But they all meet in one place. Is it Grove? They all meet in one place right there. And, they can all have that conversation. In fact, you get all this good morning, from James Vowles. He's saying hello to every single body. But listen, it warmed me, okay? I like James Vowles, okay? But, you see a very, very much more modern take of James Vowles. But then Gunter Steiner is listening to the engineers communicate to him. And he's just like, guys, you lot are just chatting like rubbish to me. I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is this car ain't good. And what are you going to do about it? And almost like, the engineer is explaining, he's speaking in his engineer language, right? Which all the engineers would understand. But a man like Gunter Steiner would not understand. He's just the team principal. And the team principal in his case is, let me put the pieces together and let's see how it happens, It's like in football, there's managers and there's head coaches. There are different types. Head coaches are like the James Vowles of this world. And there's some managers, like old school managers like Sir Alex Ferguson, maybe, the old school managers, which are like a Gunter Steiner, for example. He's not Sir Alex, but you get my point, okay? He's a different type of manager. And it got me thinking that, maybe he's too old for this. Maybe Haas need a new direction. Maybe Gene's thinking, I need to go in a new direction here. So, yeah, you start to feel like he's not cut out for this. Because every season of Netflix Drive to Survive, do you know what I hear the most about Gunter Steiner, besides the swearing, by the way? Is excuses. It's this is rubbish. This is crap. Gene, this is horrible. This is rubbish. And I'm sure Gene said this will be the same thing next year. And you know what? I started to get Gene's side to this. I can't lie. Usually I'm anti-Gene only because I feel like he gives Gunter a hard time. But now as I think about it and as time has gone on, I look at Gunter and I think, okay, when do you take responsibility for this? When do you step up to the plate and say, you know what? These ain't good. This results ain't good enough. I'm going to try and do something about it. I'd rather him try and fail than not try at all. Now, I'm not going to say he's not trying because guess what? He brought in Nico Hülkenberg and he brought in Kevin Magnussen, okay? After Nikita Mazepin. Because the thing is, he did think about the team. He thought about bringing money for the team when he brought in Mazepin and Schumacher because they will bring money, they'll bring traction. But then he thought about performance as well on the track afterwards because that didn't work. He thought about performances. And then it was like, I'll bring in Hülkenberg and, I've got Magnussen in there as well. There was even a clip where they said, for every point we score, we will give away, 1,000 times of the burritos or whatever. Like, because they got a sponsorship with Chipotle. I'm there sitting there like, damn, how many points did this team get? Was it 7 or something like that in the season? And, 7,000 Chipotles? The burritos, that's what you're going to get. That's all we're going to get with the thousands and millions of fans you've got. It didn't really make sense to me. So it did make me feel like he's not a cut out for this. And guess what? He ends, Williams end up on top. After Canada, they fly with the upgrades. They finish the season higher than Haas. They get the points. They're racking in points. I mean, they're racking it in. Alex Albon more so. You don't really get any more Logan Sargent after the start of the season. And it gets you thinking, hang on a minute. Maybe there's another episode for Logan Sargent specifically because his season wasn't quite good. So we have to wait and see what happens there. But Albon, obviously, cherished. He's the man. He's the star boy in Williams. And, Haas have a terrible end. The car is awful. It gets into accidents. Magnussen's getting into accidents. The car's just not cut out for this. And Haas have been through all of their sort of stuff. Gene wants change from what I understand and from what I see, the way Netflix portray it. They look fed up and tired, Haas. They just look fed up and tired. These times, jubilation over at Williams. But the episode ends, Mattia Binotto, guys, ex-Ferrari team principal, in the fields when I saw him turn up to this situation. He's at a vineyard in Italy, obviously. Where else would he be? You know, if he's not in Formula One, where on earth would he be? He's in a vineyard in Italy. And obviously, Gunther Steiner and Mattia Binotto have a great relationship. They've got a great friendship, and it's a friendship that I long to see. They're talking to each other. Mattia Binotto has obviously got the experience of, like, you know, being away, giving advice to Gunther Steiner. Gunther Steiner is reaching out to his man. He's saying, listen, man, like, do you prefer to be out here in the vineyard? Do you prefer to be on track? What do you miss? What do you love? That kind of thing. They're having a little bond. They're loving it, you know. And at the end of it, you know, Gunther Steiner sort of like, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe I give up on this. And then the episode ends right there. Right there. Just leaves me hanging. Leaves us all hanging. And I was like, wait, you can't just end it there. You can't just stop it right there. But I'm hoping Netflix give us something towards the latter stages of the episode, the latter episodes of this season. I'll tell you what, it was a cracking episode. It was an absolute cracking episode. I can't lie. Really good to watch. I love the way Netflix, again, you sucked me in. I was all over it. I loved every single ounce of that. And yeah, very delighted, very happy to see this episode coming to fruition. We move on to episode 5. I mean, what a journey. We're going halfway now. What a journey it has been so far. Netflix, you've done it again. What a phenomenal series. I don't care about what the haters say. I am all over Netflix Drive to Survive. I love every single ounce of it, okay? Until next time, people, I'll see you in episode 5.